The war on Iran.
Iran.
War in Iran.
War with Iran.
February 28, 2026, the world woke up to shocking news. Overnight, the United States and Israel had launched a massive coordinated attack on Iran. Missiles were flying across the Middle East, and within hours, explosions were being reported across Iranian cities. But the biggest shock came only hours later. Iranian state media confirmed that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had been killed in the opening strikes. The most powerful man in Iran dead on the first day of the war. 6 days later, the conflict continues to escalate across the Middle East. So what exactly has happened since the war began? The conflict began early on February 28th. A wave of coordinated strikes targeted Iranian military facilities and air defense systems. Explosions were reported near key strategic sites around Tehran. Within hours, the biggest development of the war emerged. Iran confirmed that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had been killed during the opening strikes. The death of Iran's leader immediately sent shockwaves across the region. Iran quickly promised retaliation. Less than 24 hours later, Iran responded. Missiles and drones were launched toward US and allied military targets across the region. Military bases across the Middle East activated defensive systems. The war was no longer contained to one country. By the fourth day of the conflict, it was becoming clear that this wasn't just a single strike or a short escalation. Military forces across the region began rapidly repositioning. Warships moved toward the Persian Gulf, and air forces across the Middle East were placed on higher alert. And suddenly, one narrow stretch of water became the focus of global attention. The Strait of Hormuz, a choke point through which nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes every single day. If that waterway were disrupted, the effects wouldn't just be regional. They would be global. Oil markets immediately reacted to the possibility. Shipping companies began reassessing routes, and governments started preparing contingency plans. But while the world watched the Gulf, the situation inside Iran was still unfolding. Because the death of Iran's supreme leader had left a massive political vacuum. And by the fifth day of the conflict, attention was shifting to what would happen next inside the country. Who would take control of the Islamic Republic after one of the most powerful leaders in the Middle East was suddenly gone? By the sixth day of the war, military activity across the Middle East had intensified. Air defenses remained active across several countries in the region. Warships continued patrolling key waterways near the Persian Gulf, and governments around the world were closely monitoring the situation. Because at this point, the conflict had already spread far beyond a single strike. By the seventh day, the conflict had turned into a global geopolitical crisis. Countries across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East began holding emergency security meetings. Meanwhile, additional military assets were being deployed across the region. Naval fleets continued moving through the Persian Gulf. The longer the conflict lasted, the greater the risk of escalation. By day 8, the war had already reshaped the balance of power in the region. Missile launches and retaliatory strikes continued to be reported. Military forces across the region remained on high alert. And global markets were reacting to the uncertainty, because much of the world's energy supply still depends on stability in the Middle East. 9 days into the war, Iran was still dealing with the aftermath of the death of its supreme leader. His death had left a massive political vacuum at the top of the Iranian government. For days, speculation grew about who would replace him, and inside Iran's leadership, discussions were already underway. Then, on March 8th, Iran made a decision. The country announced a new supreme leader. His name, Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the man who had just been killed in the opening days of the war, a controversial successor who had long been rumored to hold influence behind the scenes. And his sudden rise to power could reshape the future of Iran. Because the question now isn't just about the war, it's about the man now leading Iran and what he might do next.